On day 30, I woke up at 3 AM and after some loot reorganization I went outside. Following some Zed growling, I found one near the fence to kill. After that, I reached my truck and took the charcoal barbecue from its trunk. Then I placed it down to the left from the base entrance. After that, using my hatchet, I cut down one of the small trees in my property. It yielded only one log that I destroyed for fuel to add in my barbecue. Then I took the whole chickens from my fridge and went back outside, in order to meet a Zed I heard approaching my window. Using my mallet, I killed him and heard a new one behind my vehicles. To not litter my parking, I tried to force him to get closer to the fence. But he got stuck in my truck. At the same time, I heard another one climbing over the fence I decided to kill first. This one had a kitchen knife for me to loot. The second finally found a way to the graveyard and used the tree to surprise me. My quick reaction prevented the worst, and soon after he was dead. In the meantime, another tried to open my car trunk, so I punished him by tenderizing his face with my mallet. Finally, no more enemies were to be seen. This is why I went back in my kitchen to take some matches and a magazine from my entertainment crate. Using those, I lit up the fire in the barbecue and added inside my chicken's whole feet and animal brain. The only thing that was cooking was the whole chicken. Once those were ready, I took them out and noticed that I got 3 experience points in cooking for each. I won't risk to eat the chicken foot because it wasn't cooking, and I cannot eat the brain that, if I remember well, is used for some kind of crafting recipe I don't need right now. For now, I decided to eat only 1 chicken whole to fix my hunger issues. This made me full to bursting, but did nothing to the weight loss. After putting out the fire in the barbecue, I went back to my fridge and deposited the brains inside. Later, I continued moving the loot from my truck to the base, and once I wasn't full anymore, I tried to eat another whole chicken. To my disappointment, this didn't help at all to stop the weight loss. Ignoring this, I installed the car battery I found previously in the dart that was missing it. Later, I deposited the chicken feet in the fridge that I won't eat to not risk my run. Also, I took some junk food so I could start gaining back some weight. Waiting for the full to bursting moodle to go away, I continued unloading my truck. In the meantime, I placed down a crate under the entrance bookshelf, one above the entertainment and skill books containers, followed by 2 extra in the corner of the kitchen. In the first, I deposited special items like the car battery charger. Seconds after, I was able to eat again. For this reason, I consumed a whole jar of peanut butter and finally started to gain some weight. Moments later, my truck was empty and it was time to run to the crossroad to the northwest, in order to bring the taxi I found yesterday to my base. But once there, I noticed some zombies that respawned recently. I killed the first 2 near the playground, while the third on the other side of the road close to my car. After taking this last one watch, it was time to get inside the taxi and bring it to my base parking lot. But in the next spot there was a Zed, so I had to aggro him away and kill him soon after. Time I parked my new car and another one joined the graveyard. Once done, I decided to not waste the day unloading the taxi that can be instead done after sunset. For this reason, I entered my truck and started to move toward the crossroad to the northwest. On my way there, I found a fresh spawn along the left off-road I dealt with promptly to lower the risk of an ambush later. When I was back in my car, before driving forward, I moved my junk food to the driver's seat to have more inventory space for the loot. After that, I continued driving toward the next unexplored area. On my way there, after the crossroad, I had to deal with another fresh spawn on the right side of the road. Seconds later, finally I reached the end of the neighborhood I was looting yesterday. Once there, I went back in the house, above the one that has the farm in its backyard, only to pick up the microwave from its kitchen and take a corkscrew from one of its cupboards. The last one is a new tool required in Build 42 to open wine bottles. Later, I moved in the next property to the north and checked its garage. Inside, I found a metal bandsaw. That is a new working station introduced in Build 42 that allows to cut metal materials into smaller components. Unfortunately, I cannot pick up this station. For this reason, after opening the map and signing the previous property as looted, I added a note in the map that will remind me its location if I would need to use it. After that, I checked the wall shelf in this garage. This allowed to find a skill book, a good piece of literature, and a spare screwdriver. Finally, I signed both the garage and its house as looted. While going back to my truck to unload the loot, I had to fight two Zeds that came from the west. The first had an M9 pistol and the second a disposable lighter to loot. Once done, I unloaded my new loot in the car trunk and went to check the last property on the left side of the road. The shed had only a Mechanics Volume 2 skill book that I already have. I still picked it up, so I will use it as fire starter for my barbecue. After that, I went to check the house and started looting from the kitchen, where I found an empty bowl in the first cupboard and an empty gardening spray can in the second. The last item is used in farming in order to prepare and use chemicals that helps to cure your plants from diseases. Anyway, the last loot of this building was in the bedroom drawer that had a great piece of literature and a t-shirt in perfect condition. Finally, it was time to sign the last buildings of this lovely neighborhood as looted. On my way back to my truck, I found more loot in the garbage bin of this property. It had a bag to check, and inside this one I found a lighter and a stick of butter. Before I could continue, I had to address a Zed that tried to sneak behind. After forcing him to use the closest fence, I tried to hit him, but the tree messed up my move. Once both on our feet, I dealt with him using a more traditional approach. Finally, I went back to the bin, and after moving the rest of the trash inside it, I collected also the bag. To finish, I checked the annotated map that was left in the bin. By the looks of it, the signed location is in the western part of Louisville that I won't be able to visit. But if this video will reach 10,000 likes, I will try to do so. Back to business, I unloaded my new loot in the truck and continued driving. As soon as I reached the crossroad, I was pleased to notice 4 military Zeds near the electrical booth. After aggro them, I went back in order to separate them. I was glad to see that my plan worked perfectly, and I was able to kill them all without any issues. Starting looting, I found a shotgun shell, a military jacket in almost perfect condition, a MSR 700 rifle with some bullets inside, a pair of better elbow pads compared to mine, a military bulletproof vest in average conditions, and a balaclava from the first soldier. The second had the best item you can wish to find, a military backpack that offers an impressive 8 bonus capacity and 5 encumbrance reduction compared to my big hiking backpack. Inside the military backpack, I even found a map of Louisville South, a bag of chips, some caffeine pills, and an entertainment CD. It took a few minutes to transfer all the loot between my old and new backpacks and equip the military one on my back. From the third soldier, I obtained a shells bandolier I equipped with a shotgun shell inside. Seconds after, I was interrupted by a construction worker. At least he had a wooden mallet for me to loot. Checking again the second soldier, I found a hand fork, a military jacket in almost perfect condition, a pair of military elbow pads in perfect condition, and a face covering that uses the scarf slot. Followed by another military bulletproof vest, but this time in better conditions than the previous one. While the last loot was an Alice, that is the rarest clothing of all, because it replaced the fanny packs. At the same time, it gives higher capacity encumbrance reduction. Inside it, I even found a bottle of whiskey I can use to make a Molotov, or just drink it to have a good time. The next item was a magazine that teaches the growing seasons of hemp, plus 2 canned foods, seconds after I was ambushed by a Zed that I defeated without any issues. But I became tired. Ignoring that, I went back to loot the Alice. After throwing away the rest of the loot within, I finally equipped this extraordinary piece of clothing. Then I thrown on the ground the fanny packs I was wearing and moved their loot inside the new tactical vest. Checking the last soldier, I found another military backpack, and after throwing it to the ground, I equipped the bulletproof vest that it was in better condition compared to the other 2. After looting the last balaclava, it was time to check the military backpack. From within, I found an unlabeled can of food, a canned chili, and an annotated map. The last one revealed a small section of the north of Muldraugh. It was time to check the 4th soldier. From its corpse, I was able to obtain another green shime, followed by a bullet bandolier containing one 5.56mm round. The last item on this soldier was a military vest, but it was in bad conditions. At this point, it was time to deposit all of the new loot inside my car trunk. While doing so, I also equipped one of the green shime to insulate and protect my neck, followed by the military elbow pads and the best military jacket. Later, I checked the electrical booth, where I found a locker with a wrench and a welding torch to loot. Plus, from the ground, I obtained an iron pipe. After signing this tiny building as looted, it was time to reach my truck and drive it till the entrance inside the lodge warehouse. Despite extremely tired, I reached the Zed I noticed to the east and dealt with him quickly. Hearing the fight noise, 2 more came to die. Later, I checked the garbage near the warehouse entrance. This allowed me to find a needle I could use later for tailoring and fix my future deep wounds. Finally, it was time to get some loot from the warehouse, but I ran outside as soon as I heard a new zombie incoming from the east. This led me to kill 2 of them before I could get back inside the building. From the first crate, I obtained a dust mask that is a good alternative to gas masks and didn't use any filters. From the second, I got a spare wood saw and an interesting book to read. From the third, I got another dust mask and some wire. The last one can be used to make barbed wire to protect your base, fishing nets to get smaller fish to use as bait, and after build 42 is also used to make cage traps, required for trapping medium game like rabbits and squirrels. Back to looting from the fourth, I got a rake I could use as emergency weapon or melt it into iron. In the fifth, I found some paint that for now I will ignore. Before I can continue, I had to leave the warehouse to fight a Zed that tried to ambush me in the dark. Once he was dead, I had to address another one that came from southwest. Going back inside, I continued looting, and in the 6th crate I found my first bolt cutters. This is a new tool in build 42 and is required in armor crafting. In the same container I also found a draw plate. Despite I'm not sure about its utility, I took it anyway. The next containers had some planks and useless stuff. But finally I found a 7th container that had some interesting loot. I speak about a sharpening tool and some duct tape. From the 8th I got a seed pocket that allowed to grow sugar beet and an empty watering can. The last one is one of the best water containers and is the most effective to water your plants. Checking the 9th crate, I found a bag of wallpaper paste powder that will be useful in the future for construction, followed by an empty welding torch. I picked up also a screwdriver and a pair safety goggles from the 10th, followed by a shovel from the 11th, while the 12th had a spare hand drill, leaf rake, nuts and bolts to offer. I also noticed that there was an empty sack on the ground to pick up. After that was time to loot the 13th crate that had an empty sack of gravel, a leaf rack, but most importantly some twine. This last one is a core ingredient to make the most important item for long-term survival. I speak about the fishing rod. After taking it, I moved to the 14th container, where I found some welding rods, required in welding and metalworking. Moving to the 15th crate with good loot, I found a wood saw, a spade and a ball pen hammer. Nearby there was even an almost empty propane bottle and a circular saw blade on the ground. The last one can be converted into iron or used to improve several melee weapons. Searching further the ground, I was able to find a sharpening tool and some respirator filters. At this point, I decided to check my weight and I was losing it again. This is why I ate a whole bag of chips to fix the issue. Seconds after, I was pleased to find the Carpentry Volume 1 lying on the ground. While checking the break room of the warehouse, my battery died, and while changing it, I blindly picked up the microwave. Moving toward the exit, I stopped to check the metal shelf that had some welding rods to offer. While on the ground nearby, I found a sack, a long handle and 2 bags of plaster powder. To max out what I can carry, I decided to check the crates behind the metal shelf. This allowed me to obtain a screwdriver, a handsaw, a gardening trowel from the first, a wooden rod and a box of nails from the second. But I didn't have enough space to take the nails. This is why I went back to my truck and unloaded everything in its trunk until it was full, while I left the rest on the passenger seat. I also took this opportunity to eat a peanut butter I stored on the driver's seat, and this finally resulted in starting again gaining weight. Later, I went back to search the warehouse for more loot. Near the metal shelf on the ground, I found another bag of plaster powder and a steel piece. Moving to the crates near the northern wall, I found a few sacks in the first, an iron bar half in the second, followed by wheat and potato seeds from the third. In the same container, I also found a magazine that teaches how to make a cure against the mildew plant disease, followed by some rat poison and a gardening trowel. Moving to the fourth crate, I found a welder mask, a draw plate, and some bolt cutters. The fifth had 2 sacks filled with sand. In Build 42, sand is not used only to make sand tiles, but is also a core ingredient for fishing. Anyway, from the sixth container I got some vice grips, that is one of the core tools required in a lot of new crafting recipes. Moving to the seventh crate, I found a steel rod and a steel bar, plus a spare pair of safety glasses and a full oxygen tank. The last one is required for the new hazmat suit and scuba mask. Next, from the 8th container, I got another handsaw and some duct tape, followed by a steel bar from the 9th and wooden rod from the 10th. While from the 11th, I got some wheat seeds, some rope, a mouse trap, and a gardening trowel. Considering that I'm moving a lot of loot, I took also 3 crates to bring with me back to base. This also allowed me to access the containers behind. From the first, I got a hand scythe that allows to remove grass more efficiently. In the second, I found some wire, an iron bar quarter, some fiberglass tape, and a blower fan. The fiberglass tape, if combined with some epoxy, allows to repair a lot of tools. At this point, I was full of loot and it was time to go back to my car and fill it up. Once I was done, I went back inside to keep looting. From the next crate, I got a steel sheet. This is a core ingredient in metalworking and welding, but most importantly, you can use it to repair your vehicle parts. The best to repair this way is the trunk that has less capacity when damaged. Checking the next crate, I found a full propane tank, some pliers, knee pads, file, bolts and nuts. To access the next crates, I picked up 2 of them standing in my way. This allowed me to find 3 steel sheets in the first, followed by a screwdriver and hacksaw in the second. Then finally I found again the box of nails I left before, for the lack of storage space. Checking the next container, I found a welding torch and even some epoxy. Last one is a perfect find considering I found the fiberglass a few seconds ago. I was almost at my limits regarding carrying capacity, but I was able to fit an extra crate while leaving the warehouse. Finally, it was time to bring the loot back home. My travel was uneventful, and once I parked my vehicle, I placed down 3 crates that I had on me in the left corner from the entrance to the base. In the first, I decided to place some heavy items like oxygen tanks, blower fans, and plaster bags. In the second, I deposited my welding and metalworking supplies. For now, I left the third empty, and considering that it was almost 2 a.m., I went to sleep in my bedroom, so I could recover my strength and deal with the rest of loot unloading tomorrow.